Okay, so next we're going to install our controls. So a tone and volume pods, a pickup selector, and our input jack. Now we're doing this a little early in the process just so we can get our ground wire in place against the bushing for the bridge that earths out our signal. Just protect the finish. Okay, so first thing to go in place will be our input jack. I'll explain more about the electronics a little later when we're connecting our pickup wires. But the input jack goes at the back here. And generally on an SG, our tone goes to the back and our volume pots to the front. I just want to check I've got the right ones here. The neck will generally be the set with the earth wire coming off, so this will be our neck. So I'll just put the tone at the back, volume at the front. And that makes sense because our whole electronics cavity is nearest to that volume pot. You can tell the difference between your volume and tone pots by the tone pots have these green capacitors. And lastly, we've got our pickup selector. So just take the nut off and the washer. So this is our ground wire. We're just poking it through the side into the pickup cavity for now. Okay, so next we want to get this ground wire through. Now you may have a hole pre-drilled. I'll just bring the camera down. Now you may have a hole pre-drilled in the side, like I have here, or you may not. If you don't, you're going to need to drill it yourself. And what you're trying to do, if you can see the wire in the bottom of that hole now, you're just drilling a hole between the bridge pickup cavity and the bridge post. Okay, so we just want that ground wire up on the side so it'll sit against the bushing for the bridge when we put it in place. So next we'll install our bridge. So our bushings go in like so. Depending on how much finish or how clogged these holes are on your guitar, you may or may not be able to push them in, otherwise you may need to hit them with a hammer. But obviously have a piece of timber in between or take steps to preserve the finish. I'm just trying to keep that wire against the side, so hopefully you can see that's just sticking its head up there. So we know we've got that ground against the bushing. I'm just using a block of timber in between. And the bushings for the tailpiece. And lastly, the bridge pickup. You can tell the difference between the two. The profile of the pickup ring will be larger on the bridge pickup. Also make sure that the individual pole pieces are facing outward from each other. So that really just means that the higher edge faces back. You see I've just marked just with a small piece of green tape just to know which one's the neck and which one's the bridge. And so what I'm going to do first is just put the strings on the guitar and align the pickups to the individual pole pieces. It's not essential they're spot on, but it will help us align those pickups correctly. Okay, so once the strings are in place, just be aligning. So square the neck pickup off the fretboard and just align so that you're fairly even when it comes to the two outside magnetic pole pieces. Once you're happy with location, just go ahead and mark some pilot holes again. Loosen off the strings just enough to pull that pickup back out. being careful not to scratch the surface with your height adjustment screws. So just when installing these pickups, as you can see, we've got our location of our pilot holes marked. Now you'll find in the packaging, I'll just bring the camera across there, you'll see we've got a series of smaller screws here for the plastic cover and the scratch plate. And there should be 8 longer screws. They're the ones we'll be needing for our pickups. Now because they're longer, the threaded section is all that's embedded in the timber, so we would just want to get our pilot holes to 2/3 depth of that screw, of the threaded part of the screw, and just go ahead and drill your pilot holes. Okay, so now's probably a good time also to fit our pickguard. So they're normally a fairly tight fit between these two pickups. Put that in place like so. And again, we're just going to mark our pilot holes. Probably get that protective cover off that pickup now, off that pickguard too. So rather than scratch it, just use a bit of tape. Should pull it straight up. Now when you're soldering, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a soldering iron, obviously, solder, and I'd also recommend just having a damp sponge nearby just to keep the tip of your soldering iron clean. The other thing we need to do is also tin the end of our soldering iron and tin the components we're wiring to. All that means is essentially we just want a coating of solder on the tip like so. And we'll do that for our wires as well and our lugs. The first thing I want to do though is protect the finish of the guitar. As I said, the volume pots are the ones at the front. This one's our neck, and we'll work with that one first. So I just use a little template here, but you don't need anything like this. What you're really just trying to do is make sure that you've got a stable base for the components while you're soldering. And as I said, I'm just going to quickly tin the tips of these wires. That's just using some of the solder that's already on the iron. In many cases, the wires will actually come tinned from the factory as well. And I'm just going to thread. So we really need to connect that hot wire to the input. So I'll also just tin the end of that lug. So I'm just applying a small amount of heat to the lug first, and just dripping a little bit of solder onto that, and that'll just help the wire, or help our connection. Then you want to thread it through the lug like so, through the eyelet. All we really want to do is just apply some heat to that lug, just for a few seconds. Once there's enough heat, start feeding some solder into that. And lastly, we need to just connect this earth wire to the back of the pot. We ground all the components in our wiring individually, so the lug must be connected to the back of the shield, and that's then connected as part of a ground circuit, which eventually is connected to the bridge. Now the strings pass directly across the bridge, which means we've got a return path to the amp. So I've got that hot now, just going to drop some solder. Okay, so that's our bridge volume in place. The next thing I want to do is connect our neck pickup to our neck volume. If you can, thread that hot wire through. In this case we might not be able to, so I'm just going to again just keep the tip of that iron tinned, trying to hold that in place with the iron if I can. Really just needs a coating like so. Okay, so the last connection we need to make is to our neck volume. Now I've already put some solder on the back of that. I'm going to then just connect that ground. So just remember the uncoated wire goes directly to the back of the pot. Now it wouldn't really matter which pot, I'm just putting it to the neck because that's the one that's closest. Now the hot wire from the neck pickup should go to the output lug of this volume. As you can see, we've already got a bunch of wires coming from our pickup selector to our input just here. So we can connect this one to the output. Okay, so I'm just going to heat up that lug again. And that's our neck volume. So once that's done, obviously we just want to tighten those. Okay, so we'll just quickly test the pickups. And the first thing I want to hear is there's no interference. So I'm just going to check the neck pickup first. The way to do that, just tap on you can actually just tap on those individual pole pieces and we can hear that's working. Bridge. Now middle position should be a combination of both. I'll just check that volume's working as well. Okay, that's rolling off. Bridge. Let's just push straight onto the pots. And of course the last thing, we'll put the electronics cavity cover in place as well.